Okay, so Matt, I want to talk about your path to the NFL because it's so unique. I don't think it would happen this way for anyone nowadays because of the transfer portal in particular.
Sure.
But so let's go through this. So you end up sitting behind multiple Heisman Trophy winners, don't play a lot at USC. So how do you? We found a photo of you playing at
Wow, you had
USC.
to dig deep for that. You had to
We
dig real
did.
deep.
Yeah, let's even throwing the ball, action,
Yeah.
game action.
Game
Okay,
action.
so walk me through, like, are you like, hey, do I have a chance to make the NFL? Like, how do you go about this? I know the pro day was such an important piece for you. You did not go to the combine. So
Right.
like, how did it happen? How did you end up getting drafted in the 7th round?
It was interesting because obviously my story is very unique. I did not start a game in college. I even played some tight end, wide receiver. I was on special teams my junior, sophomore year. I helped out in that capacity. I was a backup to Carson Palmer, had a battle with Matt Leinart. Eventually, Pete Carroll calls me in a week before season, says Matt's going to start, but if he messes up, you're going in. Long story short, he goes on to have the career that he does. So I kind of was in that catch-22 as a redshirt junior. If I transfer, I have to sit out a year. And I was like, man, I'm going to hold on for dear life. So I came back, played quarterback my last year. And then as we were getting ready for the combine, even throughout that course of the year, we had Lane Kiffin, we had Steve Sarkisian that were big factors for me thinking that, hey, I'm going to give this an opportunity to go out and just try out for a pro day, because I knew that there would be a ton of scouts at our pro day considering the players that we had coming out that year. And so they would come up to me in practice and say, Cass, you should try out and just see if you get onto a practice squad. I know that your career here hasn't gone well. And so I kind of took that to heart. And I said, all right. So I trained and I got ready. And it's funny because I showed up to the pro day and the guy's like, what's your name? I was like, Matt Cassel. He's like, you're not even on this list. I was like, well, I'm here. So they said I could try out if I wanted to. So I'm here. So I went through all the tests and I tested well. And then the biggest factor for me was I went out and I threw the ball really well. And at that point, I had a bunch of scouts converge on me and asked me, tell me your story. And they started to hear a little bit about it. They're like, what kind of film? I threw 32 passes in all of college. Like, that's it, mop up duty. So it sparked a little bit of interest. I had some private workouts, none of them being the New England Patriots. And then the last day of the draft that year, and we're going into like rounds 5, 6, 7, whatever it is.
Were you watching? Were you like thinking you could get a call?
No, I was taking calls from different organizations about coming in as a free agent, which all I want to do was get my foot in the door and try to prove myself. Little did I know that New England Patriots called me that morning and say, hey, look, Matt, we'd like you to consider coming here as a free agent. If not, we're going to take you as our last pick in the draft. And I was like, well, that's awesome, right? Didn't really know that, and I didn't think that there was any way I was get drafted. Fast forward to that afternoon, all of a sudden there's a call. I get the call, and it's Coach Belichick on the phone welcoming me to the Patriots and saying, congratulations, we're going to take you next in the NFL draft. And at first I thought I was getting prank called. I was like, all right, who's messing with me? He's like, no, this is Coach Belichick. I was like, wow. So, it was wild to think that I had to go through all the different adversity and the ups and downs and the mental chaos that you go through as a player. But then to have Bill Belichick, who just came off his 3rd Super Bowl in 4 years, call you and say that they're drafting you and going to give you an opportunity to go play for the defending Super Bowl champions was a pretty big boost of confidence. And then from there, it was like, let's get to work. Showed up to the building, was a little bit intimidated walking in there with all the leadership and everybody that we had in terms of Mike Vrabel and Teddy Bruschi and Rodney Harrison and Tom Brady and all these guys. But at the end of the day, what you quickly realize in the NFL is you have to do your job. And they put up the depth chart first day. I was on the 5th on the depth chart, and then I just put my head down, grinded, got some opportunities in preseason, and made my way onto the team. And I'm forever grateful that they gave me an opportunity and believed in me, and maybe when I didn't always believe in myself.
So I feel like the part where your path wouldn't happen today is maybe you stay when you're buried in the depth chart at the beginning. But then the second time, Matt Leinart gets the job, that's probably when you go in the portal if you can play right away somewhere else, right? Like, that's the part that's different about today's day and age. And also, like, I just wonder, I mean, obviously everyone loves the physical traits and the skill sets, but I wonder if someone would draft someone off a pro day without, like, starting games in college anymore. Like, it kind of feels like that your path is, like, so unique that no one else would ever have it. happen.
Right. It's still to this day, I'm like, how did I get drafted? Number one. But in this day and age, like you said, there's so many other avenues that you can pursue, and you can hit the transfer portal and you're not penalized a whole year. So you don't even have to take that into question. If for some reason you get caught in that situation, you can go prove yourself at another school. Now you still have to prove it. And I think that's where it is different from when I came out. Now, if somebody transfers once, maybe twice to a different school and still not the starter and didn't get any starts, well, then maybe that says something about you and the quality of player you are. The fact that it was the perfect storm, so to speak, for me, that the guy that I backed up for 3 years in Carson Palmer was the number 1 draft pick overall to the Cincinnati Bengals. Understandably so, why he didn't start in front of him. He was 2 years ahead of me. And then Matt Leinart, it helped that he went out in his first season, won the Heisman Trophy as well. And so I played behind
Like, can't fault you for not beating those guys.
I was like,
out,
they gave me a small mini trophy that said, try again next year. But it's one of those circumstances that I was lucky that I was behind the guys that I was, because I think that improved my status and how they evaluated and looked at me versus playing against, your 20th ranked senior in the class, and you were still their backup and just went out and threw the ball well.
And the coaches you were under, like the system you were in as well. Because it did feel like at that period of time, like USC was just like producing these quarterbacks that were just like come off the bench ready to go for the NFL. It's really interesting because, again, like you didn't go through this traditional process of like the combine, the expectations, all the stuff coming in now. So when you think about, or when you're evaluating guys going through all of this, like, what do you think is different based on your experience? Like that when you're thinking about, like, are you thinking that there's going to be guys that kind of come out of nowhere that end up having these long NFL careers, or guys that might not be drafted or are in that 7th round or something that could really pop off? Like, how do you see it with such a unique experience?
Well, it's so interesting because I played with guys, the Rodney Harrisons of the world. He might have been a free agent. Wes Welker was a free agent. Larry Izzo, who played 12 years. Tom Brady is a 6th-round draft pick, right? I played throughout my career with a number of those guys, and on every team that I've been on, there's those guys that got drafted in the 5th, 6th, later rounds that weren't at the premier schools or still needed time to develop, got with the right coaches, and all of a sudden they start to blossom and become a guy that has longevity in his career. And then there's other guys that get drafted 1st, 2nd, 3rd round that fizzle out quickly, because the interesting part is a lot of times for these guys, they're going to face more adversity in their first few years than they've ever faced in their entire career, because they've had success. They've always been the guy that everybody looks at and goes, he's the best. And so it challenges you in a different way. And some guys can't handle that versus other guys, they excel in that environment. And that's sometimes why I think guys that have to grind, and that's why I like Cam Ward's story as well. He's had to grind for everything he's got thus far in his career, and that he's going to put in the work. And you've seen the evolution, like I said, of him getting better year in and year out. And so you don't have to worry about that work ethic as much as you might with somebody else. And so you have to be self-motivated. You have to be one of those people that are going to go out and do it. And sometimes all it needs is that boost of confidence that, hey, they gave me an opportunity to draft. Even if you're drafted in the 5th round, right? Or 6th round or 7th round, it's one of those where you have an opportunity to prove yourself. And in the NFL, if you can go out and do your job well, be accountable, be a good teammate, and then also when you get your opportunity and when that opportunity shows up, you take advantage of it, that means something to this coaching staff.
Yeah, no, those are all great points. And it's so interesting. As you were talking about, like, this might be the first time you faced adversity, I think of like Trevor Lawrence, who basically like never lost in high school, basically never lost in college. And then you get drafted by the worst team in the NFL and you have to deal with losing so many more games than you ever have in that first season as a rookie. It's kind of crazy to think about that.